Hello. I hope everybody was able to do the grammar and do it well. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me. I'm not sure if I'll email you back over this next week, but I will definitely answer any questions that you have and we'll review it when I am back in class. So, all right. So now moving on to the next phase of the lesson, we are going to be doing, oops. Lost my screen here. So we are going to be working on an Civics screen, okay? And we will be doing some lessons over just part of the independent lessons on Civics. So we're at the beginner and it's over historical events. Okay. And so again, I have everything linked in here and I will post this video as well once I have it completed. And so here is the independent lesson. So when you're ready to work on it independently, you will click there. I put together some flashcards for us, and I'll show you this when we get there. So to access the flashcards, you can click here. And then I also put together a word sort for everybody to click into and access as well, and kind of rearrange and play with the vocabulary words a little bit. Okay, so that is where we're at again. And then we will, I will give you time to work. So we're in Civics and we're in the beginners. And we are in building a timeline of historical events, okay? So this is the lesson that we're going to work on. And so just looking at the pictures, and from American history, I'm not sure if any of you were able to do any of this, and I can't get this off my screen now. Let's see. Sorry about that. Okay, so some of you may know some of this information. Depends on if you're history buffs or not. So first of all, the Pilgrims and the Mayflower. So this is where the United States basically first had its beginning. Is the Pilgrims were from England, and they were being persecuted or killed because of the religion they were practicing. So and so they came over on a ship from England and they landed in Plymouth, Massachusetts in 1600s. And so that is going to be the very first part of our American history, is when the Pilgrims landed, and that is why we have Thanksgiving. So 2 is the Declaration of Independence. And if you ever make it to Washington, D.C., this is very, very cool to see. The Declaration of Independence is right next to the Constitution in one building. And the Declaration of Independence was written to basically declare our freedom from England. So England was our territorial governing people. Okay, so the United States once belonged to England. Actually, it belonged to the Native Americans first and then to England. And they decided that it was theirs, since they've sent people over and they established colonies. Okay, so there were 13 original colonies in the territory of the United States of America. And so basically, they were very tired of being taxed by England and under England's control. So the 13 colonies got together and wrote a document about the Declaration of Independence. So we were saying we are declaring ourselves independent from England, and we sent it to England to the king. And of course, that started the Revolutionary War, which George Washington, our very first president, was the general of our army, and that is how we became the United States of America. And then number 3 is the American Civil War. Obviously, this is a reenactment. So the Civil War was in the 1700s, and it was basically a divided Eastern United States up because the Middle West and the West part of the United States was not part of the United States at that time. It was still territories. It wasn't states. It still belonged to France. Half of it did with the Louisiana Purchase. So what happened in the American Civil War is the southern states have these very big plantations, and they grow cotton and they grew tobacco, and they used African American slaves to um, work the crops and do what was needed to bring in the crops. Okay. And so the North, which was all of Maine, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Vermont, New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland. So the Northerns did not feel that the United States should have slavery and felt that all persons should be free. And so this is when the argument started, is that along with other things. So the South, which was Virginia, West Virginia, Kentucky, Alabama, Texas, Louisiana, Georgia, Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, they wanted to secede from the United States. So they wanted to remove themselves from the United States of America because they wanted to continue the slavery. But the northern colony and the northern states did not approve, which is why then we went to war. And so we had the North versus the South, okay, based on their beliefs and ideals about slavery and the freedom of people. Okay, so that was the American Civil War. World War I was in the early 1900s, okay? And it was in Europe. It was called the Great Trench War. Basically, it was the United States, France, England against Germany, okay? And so it was the Great War. It was the war to end all wars. And it was very, very long. And I'm not as much up on my World War I history as I am some of the other ones. So, but we were involved with the World War I and sent many troops over there as well. World War II was against Nazis in Germany and the control of Nazis, as well as the communist countries of Italy. Actually, Russia was our ally at that point in time. And so this one was basically to end the genocide of all the Jews that the Germans were creating back in World War II. We were brought into World War II because the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. Okay, and so we were very happily watching Europe fight each other, and we're not involved in the war. So the United States did not get involved in World War II until the middle of the war. Okay, and the reason we got involved was because the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. And so that is why we got involved in this. And so we just had I believe, the 80th celebration of D-Day, which is the June 7th is when all of our troops rushed the France coastline through air, through the sea, amphibious boats, and stormed the beaches of Normandy and France. And so that was the beginning of American soldiers on European land fighting World War II. And then we have the 9/11, the World Trade Center. And so this was the beginning of the movement against the terrorism that is against the United States. And this is partly why you have some racism when it comes to Muslim religion, because some Americans don't understand the religion, and we know that the people behind the World Trade Center and 9/11 were practicing in a faith that we don't understand. And so we're quick to judge. So basically what happened, if you are not aware of 9/11, that the terrorist group sent and hijacked airplanes, commercial airplanes, and they crashed into the two World Trade Centers. So these were huge business office buildings in New York City. They actually hijacked 4 commercial airplanes that day, which is why you have TSA in the airports and all the strict regulations and security that we have in the in our airports in the United States. And this is why, is because of 9/11. And so what happened is that these hijackers made it a suicide mission and crashed the airplanes into the World Trade Center. And obviously, with a full tank of jet fuel, both of these buildings toppled in New York City. They now have a beautiful memorial where the World Trade Centers once stood. The third plane that was hijacked was taken back and controlled by the passengers, but unfortunately had crashed in the middle of a field in Pennsylvania, and all the members on that airplane perished. And the fourth airplane was, we're not sure exactly where it was aiming, but it crashed into the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. And so if you go to Washington, D.C., you can see the tops of the trees that this airplane took off, and there's a beautiful memorial of the people who were killed in the crash with the Pentagon. So, and that was 9/11, 2001. So it's unbelievable how long ago that was. But that is just a brief little snapshot in American history, and hopefully I had all my facts correct. So the first thing that we're going to do is the vocabulary, okay? And so what I did is I picked out a few of the vocabulary and made them into flashcards. Okay, so if you go into Burlington and your virtual class scheduler, and then you click into the red megaphone, okay, and it says click here to practice your flashcards. And so once you click there, you're going to be taken to this screen. Okay, and so these are just some little flashcards I created based off these words that were there. So you're going to click Start Flashcards. Okay, so some of the things that were in this vocabulary is we had religious freedom. Okay, and then religious freedom is the ability to practice any religion and is guaranteed by the United States Constitution. And that is why the Pilgrims came to America. Okay, so religious freedom. And if you had it memorized and you got it, say you got it. But if you didn't know it, say you didn't get it. So to move on to the next, click one of them. Okay, so the North and the South. The North and the South is in regards to the divided lines for the Civil War. Okay, so obviously this is how the country was referred during the Civil War. The North believed all people should be free. The South states believed in slavery and kept African Americans as slaves to work as a plantation. Okay, and that was one of the reasons behind the Civil War. The Revolutionary War. The Revolutionary War was the United States fighting for independence from England, and it began in 1775 with George Washington as general. Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson was our third president, and he is well known because he is one of the primary authors of the Declaration of Independence, and I should say the American Constitution. So he was one of the prime members that wrote both of those documents. And so if you ever have an opportunity to go to Washington, D.C. and see these, it is very cool to see them in person. And it's free. You can just walk right in and go look at it. So, but Thomas Jefferson is one of the presidents, and he was basically the primary author of the Declaration of Independence and our Constitution. A plantation. So a plantation is a very large estate, very large house with lots of farmland around it, where crops are grown and they're taken care of. In the USA, during the Civil War, the South used slaves to take care of the crops on plantations, okay, which is one of the main reasons why the Civil War started. A colony. A colony is a group of people from one nation settling in another country. And so our colony first began in Plymouth, Massachusetts, but we also had the 13 original colonies, okay? Massachusetts, New York, Virginia are just 3 of them. You also had New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, were part of the original 13 as well. So these were the group of people that got together to declare independence from England and started the Revolutionary War. A pilgrim. A pilgrim is a person who journeys from a different country to practice their religion. The English pilgrims came to the United States in 1620 and they settled in Plymouth, Massachusetts. And that is why we have Thanksgiving, because the Native Americans helped the first pilgrims survive the winter and showed them how to harvest crops and survive in the wilderness of the United States. And the Declaration of Independence, that is a document stating and declaring our independence from England, and it was signed by the representatives of all 13 original colonies. The Emancipation Proclamation. So Abraham Lincoln was our 16th president, and in the Emancipation Proclamation, he declared all slaves to be free, which is the start, or this was in the middle of the Civil War. So the war was still going on, but he wrote the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st in 1863. On Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln was the 16th president. He was president during the Civil War. He wrote the Emancipation Proclamation and helped free the slaves. He was assassinated in Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C., watching a play. All right, so those were the flashcards. And so that kind of takes care of this part. Let me get back there. I'm so sorry. Takes care of this part, is the vocabulary part, okay? I just picked out 10 of them that was in here, and it kind of introduce you to some of that for you to practice. And obviously, we're going to use them on this one, okay? All right, so we're going to match the words to the meanings, okay? So we have settle, free, sign, ship, Civil War, slave, set up. So we have to match these words to the correct definition, okay? So to let someone go, okay? To let someone go, that we are going to free them. To let someone go means to be free. To write your name on something. To write your name on something means you will sign it. Okay, so you're going to write your name. To start something. So if I'm going to start something, I have to set it up. So I'm going to set up something to start it. Okay. To go live in a new place and stay there means I will settle. So if I'm going to settle somewhere, I'm going to go live in a new place and I'm going to stay there. A big boat is a ship. A person who has to work hard for no money. So they're working for free, basically, and they were not treated very well. In some plantations, they were treated well. So that would be a slave. So somebody who is a slave is a person who is working for free. And fighting between groups in the same country. So we had that is called a civil war, and many other countries have had civil wars as well. Okay, so these were some of the vocabulary words. Make sure I got them all right, and I did. All right. All right, so we need to choose the correct answers to form the expressions. So if I were to sign something, would I sign the Declaration of Independence or the North? Well, the North is referring to a group of people where they live, and the Declaration of Independence was an actual piece of paper where people signed. Okay, so they signed their name. Declare. A colonist is a person who settles a colony, and a war is not fun. Okay, so for somebody to declare something, we have to declare a war. That means a fight against another country, another group of people. To sail, I can sail a ship And I can't sail a plantation. A plantation is basically a very, very large farm. So for us, we call them farms, but in the South, they have these very big, beautiful, grand houses with lots of land around them with crops, okay? But for me to sail something, I need to sail a ship in the ocean. Free, we can't really free the war. We would need to stop the war, but we could free the slaves, so the people who were not paid to work. Okay, so I'm going to free the slaves. And if I'm going to set up freedom or colonies, I can't set up freedom because it's more of an abstract idea. We can have freedom, but I can't set it up. But I can set up a town. So that would be setting up colonies. Okay, so I'm going to sign the Declaration of Independence, declare a war, sail a ship, free the slaves, or set up colonies. Okay. All right. So when we read information that includes numbers. So how we say the years. When we say the year in English, we say it in two parts. For example, for 1965, we say 19. So we say the first two numbers first, and then the second two numbers. Okay, 1965. If there is a 0 before the last number, we say O. And we don't say 0, okay? We just say O. So for example, in this number, we would say 1706. Okay, so again, we pair the first two numbers, 17, and since the second two numbers starts with a 0, we say 06, 1706. So from 2000 to 2010, we don't say 2000, okay? We just say 2000. And like for 2009, it would be 2009. We would basically say it like we would say the number 2009, 2001, 2010. Okay, so we wouldn't use this O rule when we say 2000s. Anything before 2000, yes, you use the O rule, but anything after 2000, we just started saying 2000, okay? So we're going to drag these numbers to the correct verbiage, okay? So this one says 1673. So the first two numbers is going to be 16. So it can be this one or this one. And the second two numbers is going to be 73. I have 03, and this would be 1673. 1872. So my first two numbers are going to be 18, and my second two numbers are 7 and a 2, 72. And I only have an 18, only have one of them. So 1872. The third one is 1763. Okay, so the first two numbers is 17, and I have two of them. And the second two numbers is 63. So I have a 63 and an 82. So 1763. This one is 1603. Okay, so I know that I already only have one 16, and I have a 0 starting my second set of numbers. So I'm going to say 1603. And the last one, 1782. So 17 and then 82. Okay. All right, so I'm going to make sure I share my sound here. All right, so we're going to listen to read this, and then we're going to answer the text. So this is a timeline, and timelines are set up obviously based on the earliest to the latest. Okay, and so I will slow this down, and then I'll blow it up. Okay, so we will listen to Burlington read this.
Early American History, 1600, 1607, The first colonists came to America from England. They set up the colony of Jamestown in Virginia. 1620. The Pilgrims wanted religious freedom. They sailed from England on a ship called the Mayflower. They settled in Plymouth, Massachusetts. 1700. 1775. There were 13 colonies in America. The colonists wanted to be independent, so they declared war on Great Britain. The Revolutionary War began. 1776. Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence to free the colonies from Great Britain. 1783. The Revolutionary War ended. The United States was born. 1800. 1861. The Civil War began between the North and the South. One cause of the war was slavery. The northern states wanted to end slavery, but the southern states wanted slaves to work on their plantations. 1863. President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, which freed the slaves. 1865. The Civil War ended when the North won the war.
Okay, so let me drag this out of the way here. All right, so using our timeline, we're going to answer the questions, okay? So number one, when did the Revolutionary War begin? So this is when you want to use and practice your skill of scanning, okay? So when we learn in our CASAS review, we always want to scan, and you're looking for keywords quickly with your eyes. You're not going to read every word, but you're going to look for keywords. So obviously the keyword in this question is Revolutionary War. So when I scan it, I'm looking, if you notice, there's big bold black words here. So you're going to just click, you're going to look at the big black word, bold words until you find Revolutionary War. Okay, so when did the Revolutionary War begin? 1775. There were 13 colonies in America. The colonists wanted to be independent, so they declared war on Great Britain. The Revolutionary War began. So I'm going to come over here and type in 1775. When did it end? Okay, so obviously if the Revolutionary War started in 1775, I just need to kind of keep going down that list and going, okay, well, where is it ending? And so then I can see, oh, the Revolutionary War ended. The United States was born, and next to it is 1783. Okay, so that is when it ended, 1783. All right, so when did the first colonists come to America? Okay, so common sense, I want colonists. So again, I'm going to scan until I see the word colonists. And then I'm going to slow down and read it once I see the word colonists. So the first colonists came to America from England. They set up the colony of Jamestown in Virginia. When did the first colonists come to America? 1607. Okay. When did the Civil War start? My keyword, Civil War. So I'm going to go down through here until I see Civil War. When did it start? Well, Civil War began, and going right across the way and looking at the year in 1861. When did President Lincoln sign the Emancipation Proclamation? Okay, so I kind of have a couple of keywords here. I can look for Lincoln, or I'm going to look for Emancipation Proclamation. All right, so just kind of keep going down. Well, I know there's Lincoln right here. Here's Emancipation Proclamation. Okay, so when did President Lincoln sign it? President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, which freed the slaves in 1863. And when did the Pilgrims sail to America? Okay, well, looking at this and scanning, I'm looking for pilgrims. It's right here in the second one. The Pilgrims wanted religious freedom. They sailed from England on a ship called the Mayflower. They settled in Plymouth, Massachusetts, and they did so in 1620. And the last one, when did Thomas Jefferson write the Declaration of Independence? Again, we have two keywords. We have Thomas Jefferson and we have Declaration of Independence. And so just scanning, looking over your bold words, oh, I came across Declaration of Independence first. So 1776, Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence to free the colonies from Great Britain. So the answer is 1776. Okay. All right. So that is how you read a timeline. So the dates are always next to the point that or what happened that year. Okay. All right. So the second set of vocabulary words has us doing a word sort. Okay, so what I did is generally I have you write sentences or we just do a document together. So this one you get to do on your own. So you're going to go back to your Burlington English into your virtual class scheduler on your red megaphone. Okay, where it says word sort, click here. Word sort, click here. Go ahead and click. And it might take a minute to load. And what I want you to do is we're just going to do a word sort. And if you click on the four arrows that goes in all directions, it just kind of cleans up your page and gets rid of the menus. Okay. And it's really, I apologize. I tried to make it bigger, but I was not very good. So basically, you have four categories. You have wars, terrorism, government, and the civil rights movement. Okay, so you're going to sort all these vocabulary words. Either it is going to be a war, it is going to be an act of terrorism. So somebody who is trying to harm another within the United States based on beliefs and understandings. Government, so anything to do with the government and the civil rights movement. Okay, so I did a couple already. So basically, the Cold War is a war. Well, it wasn't really a war, but basically the Cold War was United States and Russia were very angry with each other. And so we said a lot of words, we did a lot of threats. And so we call that the Cold War. There's a big threat of the nuclear war because Russia has nuclear bombs and so do we. So that's why we'd put the war under wars. Terrorism, the World Trade Center was an act of terrorism. Okay, so what you're going to do, nope, it's not going to work on it. Okay, let's go to this one. So we're going to click the little card. So 9/11. So is it going to be wars, terrorism, government, or civil rights movement? Okay, so 9/11 is the same as the World Trade Center. It's a state that the World Trade Centers were hit by the airplanes. And so it's an act of terrorism. An ally. Okay, so an ally is going to be your friend. It's going to be somebody who's on your side. And we always need allies, and we need them usually when we're fighting wars. Generally, England is always our ally, France, often our ally, Italy. Okay, so a lot of the European countries are our allies. Attack. This could go in several different ways. Okay, so we could go under terrorism, we could go under war, even the civil rights movement, people were attacked. So wherever you want to put this is basically up to you. We can put it under terrorism today. A bomb. Okay. Um, Bombs could also go as something that explodes and it causes harm. So we could put that under wars. We could put that under terrorism. We could also put it under the civil rights movement because people let off bombs and tried to harm people who were fighting for equal rights and the end of racism. Okay. And we'll just put it under wars because it just levels it out. The Civil Rights Act. So the Civil Rights Act is obviously under the civil rights movement. And the Civil Rights Act is saying that no one could discriminate or do not allow people jobs or right opportunities based on the color of their skin, the religion that they are practicing, um, if they have a husband or a wife. So that is the Civil Rights Act, that all people should be treated equally. Communism, that is the type of government that is found in Russia. Okay, is communism is basically it's a government that believes that the government owns everything and then should be disseminating materials and supplies equally amongst all people. Like I said, Russia is an example of communism. So that is a type of government. Congress is our type of government. So we have Congress, we have the Senate and the House of Representatives, and they make up Congress. And their job is to write and pass new laws. Okay. They often argue with each other lately and never get anything done. So, Congress. Democracy, that is our type of government. That is our government. So democracy means that people have the right to a say or a vote. Okay, so that is why we always vote for people in the Congress, because and then we pray that they vote the way that our values will meet. Okay, so it's very important if you become a United States citizen is to go vote and practice your democracy and have a voice in what's going on in the government. Enter the war. Obviously, that goes into wars. We pray that we never enter a war because that is never good for anyone, and to try to solve it more peacefully. Equal rights. That means everybody should be treated equally. And that was the backbone of the Civil Rights Act and the Civil Rights Movement that happened in the 1960s. Martin Luther King Jr. was one of the major players in the Civil Rights Movement. Fight against. We could put this into three categories. We could put it into wars, we could put it into terrorism, or we could put it into the civil rights movement. Okay, because young people were fighting against people who discriminated and treated others not equally. So really, it's up to you where you want to put this. Okay, freedom. Um, Freedom could be under terrorism. It could be under civil rights movement. Let's put it under the civil rights movement because freedom means that you have the choice to choose and do what you would like. Government, obviously, I'm going to put that under the category of government. In order to. So anytime you see in order to, that means that before I can do something, I have to complete some other type of thing. So in order for a bill to be passed, they need 2/3 of the House of Representatives to pass the bill to move on to the Senate. Okay, so that's usually how laws kind of work. So in order for this one bill to go on to the next, it has to have 2/3 vote. The Korean War was after World War II, and it was the United States intervening in the civil war between Korea. So that's why we have North Korea and South Korea today. So that was the result of their civil war. A leader, we could put the leader into the government. Okay, so our leader is the president, who is currently Joe Biden. And if you haven't noticed, we are in the middle of a voting year. And so we will vote for a new president in November. And Donald Trump is trying to run again. Sorry, trying to get this all on one screen so you can see it. Make a dream come true. So if you know anything about Martin Luther King Jr., he stood on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., and the entire mall, the Memorial Mall in Washington, D.C., was filled with people. And if you've ever been there, it's a very, very large place. And he wrote a speech saying he had a dream. He had a dream that his children would one day be equals to all the other children and that they would not be judged based on the color of their skin. Okay, so make a dream come true is basically the backbone of the United States. And that is, the United States should be a place where all dreams can come true for people who are willing to work. And so that was one of the key things for the civil rights movement is Martin Luther King Jr.'s "I Have a Dream" speech. Modern. Um, Not sure where real modern is. So basically, modern is today. So something that is modern is something that was created recently or today. So modern world, okay? So I would say terrorism is something that is prevalent in the modern world today. Unfortunately, we always are fearful of shooters or attacks of some sort, okay? So terrorism in modern. Pass. Um, when we pass something, that means that people are voting on something and whether we agree or disagree. And again, like I said, if we want to pass a new law, they need to have 2/3 of the people in the House of Representatives and then the 2/3 of the people in Senate say yay. So to agree with this new law. So pass. Pearl Harbor. Like I said at the very beginning, Harbor is in Hawaii. On December 7th, Japan bombed Pearl Harbor. We were not expecting it. That is a major naval port for the United States of America. And so many of our battleships were harbored in Hawaii at that time. We were not part of World War II, but since Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, that is what got the United States into World War II. So Pearl Harbor is part of wars. Safe. Um, Safe, I could put under civil rights or I can put it under terrorism. So anytime in today's world, we always have to be aware of our surroundings so that we are safe, and that everybody else is safe. That is the see something, say something movement. So if you see something that is not right or does not feel good to you, make sure you report it to somebody because it could be somebody who is trying to commit terrorism. Struggle. Obviously, we could put that under wars. We could put it into to terrorism, or we could put it under civil rights movement. So a struggle is like a fight. I'm going to put it under civil rights movement. So people struggled accepting all people. Doesn't matter what color their skin is. It doesn't matter what their religion is. But that is the root of racism. Is that some people just have a hard time understanding and being accepting. So they struggle. A terrorist is a person who commits terror um, and tries to cause harm to innocents. Thousands of, and again, I could put this under war or I could put it under terrorism. So thousands of people died. Okay. So either one. So I'll just put it in the middle there. So thousands of. So I'm usually referring to a group of people or uh, objects or anything. So thousands of something. Vietnam is when we were also again part of another person's civil war in Vietnam and Cambodia. And so it really was never declared a war because Congress never voted on it. The president has the ability to, an executive right to send our troops. And so it has never been declared a war, but a lot of people call it a war. It's the Vietnam conflict. And that was during the 1960s. Many of our American soldiers were killed. Again, World War I, we're going to put that under war. We'll scoot this over. And then World War II. Okay, so that is our word sort. All right. And like I said, you have the links and I will undo everything so you have the opportunity to do this as well. Okay. And so we're just kind of sorting these words into the 4 categories of war, terrorism, government, and civil rights. Okay. So going back into a civics lesson. So that is this, where we had to just kind of sort the words into the right categories. And you can listen to them all here too as well, okay? All right, so we're going to drag the words to complete the phrases. So we have war, order, world, rights, against, cold, act, and harbor. Okay, so we're going to complete the phrases. So we have equal. So this was basically for equal rights. We have the right, everybody has the right for something, okay, to be treated fairly. In blank 2. Okay, so that again, that was part of government where we would say in order to. So in order to pass a bill, we need 2/3 of the vote. Blank Trade Center would be the World Trade Center. Pearl Harbor, okay, in Hawaii. I hear it's absolutely beautiful. I've never been there. Civil rights. This was not really a war, but it did have a lot of protests, a lot of violence. People were arrested and just not treated nicely, but some of them also broke the law when they were protesting as well. So we call that the Civil Rights Act. It is a law that was passed by Congress declaring that all people should be treated equally and fairly. Okay, so we have blank war. So I only have war, against, and cold. This would be the Cold War. So again, that's the argument between Russia and the United States, where we gave each other the cold shoulder, made threats, just kind of acted like we were going to go to war with each other. It was not a fun time. Fight. If I'm going to fight against someone. So have an argument or fist fight, I guess, against another opponent. And then we have the Vietnam War. Okay. So equal rights, excuse me, in order to World Trade Center, Pearl Harbor, Civil Rights Act, Cold War, fight against Vietnam War. All right, so in this one, we're going to drag the words to make sentences in the correct order, okay? And again, look at your find your capitals, find your periods. So you know the beginning and the middle, or beginning and the end of the sentence, and then we just have to figure out the middle. So we have declared war, Congress, Germany against. Here's my period, so I know it ends there, okay? This is a capital letter, so I know it begins with Congress. Congress declared war against Germany. I think it makes sense. It's already in order. Okay. America and her allies, World War II won. Okay, so here's my period. So that goes to the back. So America is already capitalized, so I know that's the beginning. So now America does what? What's our verb? And her allies are won. So one is my verb. So America won. Oops, no, sorry. America and her allies won World War II. I need to read better. Okay. So it includes multiple subjects. So that's why one is after allies, because America and all the other countries that are our friends. We have at Pearl Harbor, American ships bombed in Japan. Excuse me. Here's my period. I'm going to drag it to the end. Maybe. Okay. But I have 2 words that are capitalized here, so I'm not real sure which one goes first. So I have American ships bombed Japan, at Pearl Harbor. Well, I know that the subject, the person who bombed something is Japan, Okay, so that would be my subject. So that should go at the beginning of my sentence. That's who my sentence is about. Well, what did Japan do? They bombed. That's my verb. Has an ed on the end, so it's past tense. Japan bombed American ships at Pearl Harbor. Okay. South Korea, communism, fight against, the US helped, and Vietnam. Here's my period. So there it goes at the end. So I'm going to drag it. Okay. This one has a capital. So the capital the, or T, I should say. So that's at the beginning. So the US helped. Who did we help? Well, we can help South Korea. And then I have and Vietnam. So did we help both of them? Probably. So that's going to be a joint subject phrase. Okay. So the US helped South Korea and Vietnam fight against communism. All right. Gave to all Americans the Civil Rights Act equal rights. Here's my period. I'm going to drag it to the end of my sentence because it ends in my sentence. Here's my capital. So that has to go at the beginning of the sentence. Well, maybe there we go. So the Civil Rights Act. So I've gave and equal rights. Okay, well, what did the Civil Rights Act do? Gave is my verb. So the Civil Rights Act gave equal rights to all Americans. Now we have terrorists attacked on 9/11, the World Trade Center. Here's my period. So I'm going to take it to the end. Okay, well, terrorists is already capitalized, so I'm going to keep that there. So what did the terrorists do? Well, a terrorist attacked the World Trade Center on 9/11. Okay. And we got all those right. Okay, so the last one that we are working on is, again, we're going to listen to a timeline. Okay. And this one's about modern American history. And on the timeline, we need to answer the following questions. Okay, so again, we'll look for our keywords when we get there. So let's listen to this, read it, okay?
Modern American History 1900. America fought for democracy and freedom in 2 world wars. 1914. World War I began. 1917. Congress declared war against Germany in order to make the world safe for democracy. 1919. World War I ended. 1939. World War II began. 1941. Japan bombed American ships in Pearl Harbor. The U.S. entered the war and fought against Japan, Italy, and Germany. 1945. World War II ended. America and her allies won the war for freedom. The Cold War was a struggle between democracy and communism. 1950. The Korean War began. The U.S. helped South Korea fight against communism. 1959. The Vietnam War began. The U.S. helped South Vietnam fight against communism. 1964. The government passed the Civil Rights Act. It gave equal rights to all Americans. Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr., a civil rights leader, worked hard to make this dream come true. 2000. 2001. Terrorists attacked the World Trade Center on September 11th. Thousands of people died. This day is called 9/11.
Okay. So I just realized that video was not on. So my apologies if you wanted to see me. That's always in the way, though. Okay, so again, we're going to use our ability to scan and we're going to look for keywords within our questions. Okay, so we're going to read this text and then we're going to answer this question. So, which countries did America fight against in World War II? So, my key words is countries in World War II. So, I've got to go through and I'm looking at my bold words and I'm looking for World War II. Okay, so it's asked me which countries did we fight against? So I'm just going to kind of read it. So it says Japan bombed American ships in Pearl Harbor. The US entered the war and fought against Japan, Italy, and Germany. Okay, so on this one, we have to we find our keyword by scanning, but then we have to slow down and actually read that to find the answer. So the answer is Japan, Italy, and Germany. Okay. Number two, what happened on 9/11? Okay, so again, 9/11 is my key word. And so I'm going to scan until I find, oh, 9/11. It's still in yellow too. Okay. All right. So what happened? So now, since I found it, now I have to read closer. Terrorists attacked the World Trade Center on September 11th. Thousands of people died. This day is called 9/11. Okay, so what happened? Um, Terrorists attacked the World Trade Center. Number three, when did World War I begin? Again, my keyword is World War I, and I don't have to go far because that's the very first one in big and bold. And right here, next to it is 1914. So we know that World War I began in 1914. All right, number four, what did Japan do in 1941? All right, so I don't need to look for a keyword here. I'm going to look for the date. So I'm just going to go find 1941. Well, what did Japan do? They bombed American ships in Pearl Harbor. Okay, so Japan bombed American ships in Pearl Harbor. Okay, number five, who won World War II? Again, keyword World War II, scan it. Oh, found it right here. Who won though? So now I found World War II, so I'm just going to keep kind of going down and kind of reading a little closer. Well, and then right here in 1945, World War II ended. America and her allies won the war. So who won? America and her allies. And we always refer to the United States as a girl. So anytime you use a pronoun for the United States, use her or she. Okay? Don't ask me why, because I don't really know. That's just how that worked. All right. Number six, who was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.? Okay, well, I have a picture of him right here, but if you didn't know that, that is going to be your key word to scan. And right here is going to be, this one is not in bold. So this one would have been harder to find. I just happen to know this is his memorial in Washington, D.C. And know that's him. Okay, so, well, Dr. Martin Luther King was a civil rights leader. Okay, so he is a civil rights leader who helped pass the Civil Rights Act. Oops. Oh, and it won't let me. How about he's just a civil rights leader? Okay, number seven. Which country did America help in 1959? Okay, so I really don't need a keyword. I'm just looking at the date. So 1959. Which country did we help? We helped South Vietnam. Okay. Number eight. When did the Korean War begin? So my keyword is Korean. I'm going to scan quickly, looking for Korean. Oh, right here it is. When did the Korean War begin? In 1950. And if you ever see that memorial in Washington, D.C., that is one of my favorites. It's very, very pretty. And they have soldiers walking through the marshes. And it's like the statues are watching you because it looks like their eyes are moving, but it's a beautiful memorial if you ever make it there. Number 9, what did the Civil Rights Act do? Okay, my keyword is civil rights. So just looking at my bold words, civil rights. Okay, so the Civil Rights Act do? Well, it gave equal rights to all Americans. Okay, so it gave equal rights to all Americans. So this is a good way to practice your scanning. And especially when you take the CASAS test, in your reading portion, you want to be able to find your keywords, find the information in the CASAS reading to find the answer, okay? So that's a good way to practice that. All right, so it looks like we got them all. Okay, so, and that is the end of the beginning lesson of becoming a citizen number 1. Okay. I will let you play the game because I know that's always one of your favorite. It is Connect 4 where you have to drop the red and green chip. So if you have a partner or if somebody in the house, I know there's multiple students that have multiples. So Zoya, Eeyore, if you want to pair up, one of you be red and one of you be green, or Octavio, and you guys, if you guys want to play it together, that's be a fun way to do that. So all right, so what you need to do now, let me go back. All right. So go back into Burlington. Go ahead and click on the independent lesson, the second part of the lesson under your virtual class scheduler, and then practice your independent lesson and doing all this on your own. Okay. Hopefully that was helpful. I'm anxious to hear feedback, what you guys think of this new way of teaching. And I can definitely interact and put some of this into our daily lessons and maybe help with the time it takes for some of us to do some of these lessons. So, all right, guys, that is Monday's assignment. Again, I will be paying attention. I know how long my videos are, and then I will pay attention to how long it takes you guys to do the independent lesson. And so that will be your time for your attendance in class, okay? All right, zip me an email if you have any questions. And I know Ricarda is more than happy to answer any questions as well. I've included her in on this email and to everybody as well. So, all right, see you guys soon. Good luck.